Chapter 21. While we drive, I try a few more times to regain the signal with the globes, but every time I get the solar system up and running they just orbit like normal. It's almost midnight and I'm about to rifle through the other stones and objects in my chest, but it's then I see the scattered lights of a town on the horizon. A sign passes on my right just like it did a few months ago when Henri was behind the wheel. Welcome to Paradise, Ohio. Population 5243. Welcome home, Sam whispers. I press my forehead against the window and recognize a dilapidated barn, an old sign for apples, a green pickup still for sale. A warm feeling comes over my entire body. Of all the places I've ever lived, Paradise has been my favorite. It's where I made my first best friend. It's where I developed my first legacy. It's where I fell in love. But Paradise was also where I met my first Mogadorians. Where I had my first real battle and felt real pain. It's the place where Henri died. Bernie Koza jumps onto the seat next to me, and his tail wags at an amazing rate. He shoves his nose through the small crack in his window, and he sniffs furiously at the familiar air. As we take the first side road on the left and make several more turns, backtracking here and there, making sure we're not being followed, finding the best and least conspicuous place to leave the SUV, we go over the plan once more. After we get the transmitter we go right back to the car and we leave Paradise immediately, Six says. Right? Right, I say. We don't make contact with anyone else, we just go. We leave. I know she's referring to Sarah, and I bite my lip. Finally, after all these weeks on the run, I'm back in Paradise and I'm told I can't see Sarah. Got it, John? We leave. Right away? Lay off already. I know what you're getting at. Sorry. Sam parks the SUV on a dark street under a maple tree 2 miles from his house. My shoes drop to the asphalt, my lungs take their first real breath of Paradise air and I instantly want to go back to how it was, back to Halloween, back to coming home to Henri, back to sitting on my couch next to Sarah. We don't take any chances of losing my chest in an unguarded car, so Six opens the back door and lugs it onto her shoulder. Once comfortable, she makes herself invisible. Wait, I say. I want something out of there first. Six? Six reappears and I open the chest and retrieve the dagger, slipping it into the back pocket of my jeans. Okay. Now I'm ready. Bernie Koza, buddy, are you ready? Bernie Koza transforms into a small brown owl, and he flaps his way onto a low branch of the maple tree. Let's do this already. Six picks up my chest and disappears again. Then we run. With Sam trailing at a good pace, I jump a fence and pick up speed on the edge of the nearest field. After a half mile, I'm veering into the forest, loving the way the branches break off my chest and arms, how the tall patches of grass whip my jeans. I look over my shoulder often, and Sam is never farther than 40 yards behind me, jumping over logs, sliding under branches. There is a noise beside me, but before I can reach for my dagger Six whispers that it's just her. I see a swatch of grass part down the middle and I follow. Luckily, Sam lives on the outskirts of Paradise with large yards separating each neighbor. I stop just inside the lip of the forest when his house comes into view. It's a small, modest house with white aluminium siding and black shingles, a thin chimney on its right side, a tall wooden fence enclosing the backyard. Six materializes and sets down my chest. That it? She asks. That's it. 30 seconds later, Bernie Koza lands on my shoulder. 4 minutes go by until Sam lumbers through a line of brush and stands next to us, out of breath, his palms planted firmly on his thighs. He looks up at his house in the distance. How are you feeling? I ask. Like a fugitive. Like a bad son. Think about how proud your dad would be if we pull this off, I say. 6 turns herself invisible to run reconnaissance, checking the shadows of the nearby houses, the back seats of every car on the street. She returns and says everything looks okay, but there are some motion sensor lights on the house on the right. Bernie Koza flies away, perching himself on the highest point of the roof. 6 grabs Sam's hand and they turn invisible. I tuck the chest under my arm and quietly follow them to the back fence. They reappear, and 6 goes over first, then Sam. I toss the chest over and climb quickly after. We duck behind an overgrown shrub, and I survey the backyard and its trees, high grass, a big tree stump, a rusty swing set, and an antique wheelbarrow on its side. There's a back door on the left side of the house and 2 dark windows on the right. There it is, Sam whispers, pointing. What I first thought was a tree stump peeking out of the middle of the yard is actually, upon closer inspection, a wide stone cylinder. Squinting, I see a triangular object sticking up off its top. We'll be right back, 6 whispers to Sam. My hand in 6's, I turn invisible and say, okay, Eagle good. Guard that chest as if my life depends on it. Because it does. 6 and I carefully walk through the high grass towards the well, and then kneel in front of it. Numbers border the circumference of the sundial, 1 through 12 on the left side and another 1 through 12 on the right, 0 at the top, and the numbers are surrounded by a series of lines. I'm about to grip the middle triangle and twist randomly when I hear 6 gasp. What? I whisper, raising my eyes to the dark back windows. In the middle. Look. The symbols. I study the sundial again, and my breath is caught in my throat. They're faint and easy to overlook, but in the middle of the circle are 9 shallow Lorex symbols. I recognize the numbers 1 through 3 because they match the scars on my ankle, but the others are new to me. What's Sam's birthday again? I ask. January 4th, 1995. The triangle clicks like a lock as I turn it right to the Lorex number 1. I turn it left, swallowing hard as I aim it at what must be number 4. My number? Then I rotate the triangle to 1, 9, back around to 9 again, and 5. Nothing happens for a few seconds, and then the sundial begins to hiss and smoke. 6 and I step back and watch as the stone lid of the well flips back and opens with a loud echoing crack. When the smoke clears, I see a ladder inside. Sam is jumping up and down near the fence. One hand over his mouth, the other raised in a fist. One of the dark windows of the house turns yellow. Bernie Koza lets out 2 long hoos from the roof. Before I can think, 6 yanks me forward, and soon I'm visible and descending the ladder inside the well. 6 follows, pulling the lid almost closed above her. I illuminate my palms and see we're 20 feet from a cement floor. What about Sam? I whisper. He'll be fine. Bernie Koza's up there. We reach the floor and find ourselves in a short hallway that curves to the left. The air is musty. I shine my palms back and forth as we walk through the curve, and when the hallway straightens again, we see there's a room ahead with a cluttered desk and hundreds of papers pinned to the wall. I'm about to run inside, but that's when my lights catch a long white object in the doorway. Is that? 6 trails off. I'm stuck in my tracks. It's an enormous bone. 6 pushes me forward and I pull the dagger from my back pocket. Ladies first, I offer. Not this time. With a running start, I jump over the bone and immediately light up the room with my hands. A yell escapes my mouth as I take in the skeleton sitting against the wall. 6 jumps inside, and when she sees it, she stumbles backwards into the desk. The skeleton is over 8 feet tall, with giant feet and hands. thick blonde hair falls from the top of its skull and reaches past its wide shoulder blades. Around its neck hangs a blue pendant similar to mine. "That's not Sam's dad," Six says. "Definitely not." "Then who is it?" I step forward and examine the pendant. The blue laurelite stone is slightly larger than mine, but everything else is the same. I stare at it and feel an overwhelming connection to whoever this was. I'm not sure, but I think he was a friend. I reach over his head and retrieve the pendant, handing it to Six. We move to the desk. I don't know where to start. A heavy layer of dust covers stacks of papers and writing utensils. The writing on the papers pinned to the wall above the desk is in every language but English. I recognize a few Loric numbers, but nothing else. A white electronic tablet sits on a dilapidated wooden chair, and I pick it up and press my fingers over its black screen. Nothing happens. Six opens the top drawer to find more papers, and as she grabs the second drawer's handle, an explosion above ground knocks us off our feet. A long crack travels along the room's ceiling and then the concrete buckles. Chunks fall all around us. "Run!" I yell. With the pendant around her neck, Six tears a dozen papers from the wall and I stuff the white tablet in the back of my waistband. We scramble up the ladder and peek out the sliver of space between the well and the sundial. Dozens of mogs. Smoldering fires. Bernie Koza has transformed himself into a tiger with the curling horns of a ram. A mog's arm is in his teeth. Sam is no longer at the fence, and neither is my chest. I'm about to burst out of the well when Six launches herself past me in a tornado of clouds. The sundial lid whips backwards, and she rips through a huddle of 5 mogs, sending them across the yard. I pull myself out of the well and close it as she picks up a gleaming mog sword, turning invisible. I use my telekinesis to toss 3 armed mogs standing near the well against the house. They explode into thick ash, and when I turn I see a shirtless man frozen in the back door with a shotgun in his hands. Behind him stands Sam's frightened mom in a nightgown. Six materializes next to 2 mogs running at me with glowing cannons, and she swings the sword through both their necks. Then she uses her telekinesis to throw the wheelbarrow at another, turning him into a pile of ash. I toss 2 mogs against another, and Six impales all 3 in one quick motion. Bernie Koza leaps into the middle of the yard and digs his teeth into a few mogs struggling to their feet. "Where's Sam?" I yell. "Here." I twist to see Sam lying on his stomach under a charred shrub. Blood runs down his scalp. "Sam!" his mom yells from the doorway. He struggles to his knees. "Mom!" his mom yells again, but a mog reaches down and pulls Sam up by his shirt. I concentrate and uproot the rusty swing set, but before one of its metal poles can spear the mog in the chest, he tosses Sam over the fence. With an intensity I've never seen in her before, Six slices through the remaining mogs. She's covered in ash when she jumps over the fence after Sam. I leap onto Bernie Koza and we follow. Sam is on his back in the neighbor's yard. Motion sensor lights flood over him. I jump off Bernie Koza and pick him up. "Sam? Are you okay? Where's my chest?" He opens his eyes halfway. "They got it. I'm sorry, John." "There." Six points to several mogs running through a field towards the forest. I set Sam on Bernie Koza's back, but he pushes himself off. "I'm okay. I swear." From the other side of the fence, Sam's mom yells, "Sam. I'll be back, Mom. I love you." And then he's the first to run towards the mogs. Six and I catch up easily, but she veers right to plunge her sword into an approaching mog. 4 more are 30 yards ahead of her, and with the large pendant bouncing around her neck, she charges, with Bernie Koza at her heels. Sam and I entered the muddy field, and 2 mogs cut off our path. Over my shoulder I see 2 more separating and marching in our direction at strategic angles. The others have entered the forest at 2 different sections, and I can't see who has the chest. I pull the dagger out of my back pocket. The handle wraps around my hand. I run ahead, and the 2 mogs in front of me run, too, their swords bouncing and cutting into the empty field behind them. When we're less than 5 yards apart I leap with my dagger above my head. As I start to fall, a huge tree zips underneath me, ramming both mogs and killing them. 6. As I hit the ground again I turn to see her running towards Sam and the 2 mogs who circle him. The one on Sam's left tackles him around the waist. 6 stares the mog off and throws him far into the field, where he immediately gets back on his feet and charges. I sneak up behind the other mog and hammer my dagger into the back of his neck, pulling it out at an angle that slices down through his shoulder blade. He falls to a pile of ash that blows onto my shoes. Pittacus pounces on the other mog and quickly he has a tongue coated in thick ash. "We have to get back to the car and get out of here," 6 says. "There must be more on their way, they were waiting for us." "We have to get my chest first," I say. "Then we're going to have to split up," 6 says. With her soot-covered sword, she points at the 2 sections of forest the mogs disappeared into. "Pittacus, you're with me." Pittacus shrinks into a hawk, and he and 6 head left. Sam and I enter the forest in the other direction. Soon we hear twigs cracking, and we run in that direction. I speed ahead and hurdle a series of dead trees to see 4 mogs trying to escape through a small clearing. In the moonlight, I still can't see if any of them hold my chest. I slide down the hill on my side, crushing saplings, creating a small landslide of loose rock. I hear Sam crashing after me. They're halfway through the small clearing. It's dense, with grass 6 feet tall, and I run through it at full speed. Sam yells for me to tell him what direction I'm headed in, but instead I keep running and aim my lit palm straight up into the sky as a beacon. "Okay. Got it," he yells. Finally, right before the clearing becomes forest again, I can almost reach one. I dive for his legs and slice through the bottom of his muddy khakis and sever his Achilles tendon, causing him to roar onto his back. I climb up his flailing body and stab him in the chest, killing him. Sam trips over my legs and falls on his face. "You get it?" "No. Come on." Using one hand as a flashlight and the other as a machete, I race through the forest with ease, not caring how close Sam stays behind me. In less than a minute, I see another mog struggling over a fallen log. From 25 yards away, I lift the log high off the ground, tip it, and force the mog to teeter and fall headfirst. I crash through weeds to find him motionless on his stomach. I can already tell he doesn't have my chest. I kill him with 2 stabs of my dagger. "John?" Sam yells in the darkness. "Dude." I again shine my palm in the air, and I'm scanning the trees when Sam arrives. "Tell me you got it?" "Not yet," I say. "No chest," Sam mutters. I just hoped 6 had better luck. I reach behind me and pull the white tablet out to show Sam. "But I do have this." He grabs it out of my hand. "From the well?" "That's not all we found. Wait until I tell you what else." I suddenly recognize where we are. I stop walking. I even stop breathing. Sam grabs my shoulder and says, "Whoa, dude. What's going on? Why? Feeling something? Like maybe somebody just opened your chest?" As far as I can tell, my chest hasn't been opened. The feeling brewing inside me is something entirely different. We're near Sarah's house. Chapter 22. After the door at the bottom of the tower creaks open, I hear footsteps. I hear echoed breathing. Whoever it is, it'll be impossible to hide a drugged Adelina, a cat, and a chest stuffed with alien weapons and artifacts. I slowly set the branch back into the chest and close the lid. Legacy creeps to the edge of the belfry floor and then sits and stares down into the darkness. We're all silent, but then Adelina rolls out a long, droning snore. The footsteps in the circular stairway speed up. I give Adelina a few shakes to wake her up. She falls onto her side. What do? I mouth to Legacy. The cat jumps on top of the chest and then jumps back off again only to purr around my feet. It isn't an answer, but it does give me an idea. I lean down and set Legacy on top of the chest and then scramble up into one of the two windows where the cool air penetrates my pajamas and instantly causes my teeth to chatter. The footsteps are getting closer. With my mind, I raise the chest high in the air, and Legacy's claws scrape at the lid for a safe footing. I have to duck as I float the chest up and over me and out the window. Immediately after I set the chest quietly on the frosty lawn 10 stories below, Legacy jumps off and runs into the darkness. I then float Adelina up and over me, her nightgown brushing the top of my head, and carefully I set her down next to the chest. The footsteps are loud now. I swing my legs over the edge of the window. Using whatever concentration I can still muster, I am able to levitate myself a few centimeters above the cold stone. I push out into the swirling wind. Before I lower myself away from the tower, I see the mustached Mogadorian from the cafe round the last turn of the stairway and stomp into the belfry. My concentration buckles and then snaps into a million little pieces. I go into a wild free fall until the last moment, when I press my hands in front of my chest and set my mind on floating like a feather. My right knee lands a hair from Adelina's shivering body. I panic. I either have to try to get the chest and Adelina down into the village for hiding, but it is the middle of the night and we are in our night clothes and I can only see a few lonely windows lit in town, or I have to quickly find a place to hide us within the orphanage. It will take the Mogadorian less time to descend the tower than it did for him to race up it, but he still has a long hallway to travel and another flight of stairs to run down to make it to the first floor. I stick my head through the double doors, and once I see the coast is clear, I drape Adelina over the chest and float them into the nave. My strength is waning immensely, but I am somehow able to summon just enough power to get the chest, Adelina and me tucked away up into the farthest recess of the drafty, cold and damp nook where the chest had originally been hidden. I am beginning to think I led the Mogadorian right to me by opening the chest. Perhaps the red pulse of the crystal I dropped is some kind of transmitter. Adelina will know what it is, what to do. To combat the fear that an evil alien race is coming directly for me, to somehow apologize to Adelina for drugging her, and to gather a little warmth, I rest my head on Adelina's chest and wrap my arms around her waist. Hours later, I hear Adelina grunt and shuffle her legs underneath mine. Adelina? I whisper. Are you awake? Who is that? Marina? I whisper, Adelina, you have to be really quiet. Why? She whispers. And where are we? We're in the nave where you hid the chest. But please listen to me. They're here. The Mogadorians came for me last night after I opened the chest, and I had to hide us. How did you open up the chest by yourself? It doesn't work that way. You told me how to do it. You were sleep-talking, I lie. I could tell her I drugged her, but I'm not ready for that argument. Her confusion is evident in her voice. I don't remember, I remember getting out of bed and then, I guess that's about it. You opened up the chest? What was inside? A lot of things, Adelina. So much. There are all these stones and all these jewels, and one of them lit up in my hand and started flashing, and I think that's why the Mogadorian showed up. What Mogadorian? What happened? Adelina tries to sit up, but I stop her before she hits her head on the low ceiling. I whisper, I saw a man in the cafe a few days ago who had a book about Pittacus, and he kept staring at me. He had this hat on and this big mustache, and I could just tell he was from Mogador. And then last night after I opened the chest in the North Belfry, he showed up. How did we escape? I used my telekinesis to float us out the window and into the yard, and then I used it to get us up here. We have to get out of here, she whispers. We have to leave Santa Teresa immediately. My excitement is immediate. I hug her in the dark, and to my surprise she hugs me back. Adelina crawls to the lip of the nook and I follow her with the chest hovering behind me. When the nave appears empty, Adelina asks me to lower her to the floor. Then I carefully drop the chest over the lip and set it silently next to Adelina's bare feet. I'm about to levitate down when Sister Dora appears at the back of the nave and marches towards Adelina. Where have you been? She barks. You left your post all night. How could you do such a thing? And what is this luggage doing in here? I had to get some fresh air, Sister Dora, Adelina says softly. I'm sorry I left my post. I can see Sister Dora's eyes narrow. With Marina? What? I had 4 girls wake me up in the middle of the night saying that Marina snuck out last night and that you left with her. Adelina starts to speak, but Ella suddenly appears behind Sister Dora and tugs on her dress. Sister Dora? I just saw Marina, she lies. Where? In the bedroom, sleeping. Sister Dora bends down and snatches Ella by the arm, and the terrified look on Ella's face causes something to shift inside me. You're a little liar. I just came from the sleeping quarters, and no one is in there. You're making up excuses for her. Sister Dora, that's enough, Adelina says. But Sister Dora begins dragging Ella away so forcefully that her feet hardly touch the ground. We're going up to the office, and you're going to learn that you don't lie here. Tears stream down Ella's cheeks. From the nook's opening, I stare at Sister Dora's hand and pry her fingers away from Ella's bicep. Sister Dora yells in pain, and then peers down at Ella with surprise and confusion. She grabs Ella again. Adelina jogs over to them, and before I can send Sister Dora all the way down the main aisle on her back, Adelina grabs her wrist. Sister Dora rips her arm away. My heart jumps into my throat with Adelina's newfound alliance to me and my friend. Don't you ever touch me again, Sister Dora challenges her. You don't even belong here, Adelina. And neither does that juvenile demon you brought with you. Adelina smiles calmly. You're right, Sister Dora. Perhaps Marina and I don't belong here, and perhaps we will leave this very morning. But would you please be so kind as to let go of Ella first? Her voice, while cordial and patient, contains a hint of venom. How dare you? Sister Dora scoffs. Why, you're no more than an orphan yourself. We took you in when no one else wanted you. We're all the same in the Lord's eyes. Surely you acknowledge as much? Sister Dora moves to take another step, but Adelina again grabs her arm. The two women stare into each other's eyes. I will be talking about this with Sister Lucia. You will be thrown out of here so fast you won't have a chance to pray for forgiveness. I already said I'd be leaving this morning. And I will always have the chance to pray for forgiveness. Adelina reaches her hand out to Ella, and she takes it. Sister Dora hesitates before reluctantly letting go of Ella's arm. I'll not only pray that Marina forgives me for being such a terrible guardian, but I'll also pray that God forgives you for forgetting your purpose here. They continue to stare into each other's eyes for a few more seconds before Sister Dora pivots and huffs out of the nave. Once she's out of sight and Ella has her back to me, I float to the ground. "Hi, Ella," I say. "Marina." She lets go of Adelina's hand, runs and hugs me. "Where were you?" "Adelina and I had to talk alone," I say, pulling away from her. I look up at Adelina. "We had to talk about our future." Adelina squints, then looks down at her dirty nightgown and becomes embarrassed. "Marina, go pack your things and put the chest somewhere safe. We're leaving very soon." When Adelina walks away, Ella grabs my hand and squeezes it. "The bad men were here last night, Marina." "I know, I saw him. That's why we're leaving." As soon as I say it, I know I will ask Adelina if we can take Ella with us. "I saw all three of them," Ella whispers. I gasp. "There's three of them. They were at the window last night, looking at your bed." A shiver runs up my spine. I float the chest back up into the nook and run to the sleeping quarters, dodging huddles of girls in the hallway whispering to each other about something that happened in the village. "They were right there," she says, pointing at the window. "Three of them, you're sure?" She nods her head. "Yes, and they saw me at the window watching them. Then they ran away." "What did they look like?" I ask. "They were tall and had really long hair. And their jackets went almost to their shoes," she says. "With mustaches, right?" "They had mustaches?" "I don't think so. I don't remember mustaches," she says. I'm confused, but I know I don't have much time before Adelina shows up with a bag of the belongings she's collected over the past 11 years. I'm about to race into the shower when Anneli, another girl, stops me in my tracks. "School is cancelled today. That girl Miranda Marquez was found strangled inside the school this morning." I sit down on my bed, shocked. Miranda Marquez is a dark-haired girl who lives in the village and sits beside me in Spanish history class. Our teacher, Maestra Munoz, often confuses us for each other because Miranda is skinny and tall like me, and her hair is the same length as mine. It takes me a second to realize that whoever killed Miranda might have mistaken her for me. Someone might have tried to kill me last night. This is bad," I whisper. Anneli says, "Plus, I heard one of the sisters say that some villagers saw people flying through the air last night and now there are all these news vans out there doing a report on it. This is all happening so fast. The Mogadorians have found me. They found my cave. I was being reckless with my legacies and witnesses saw me and Adelina leave the belfry window. A girl from my school might be dead because of me, and Adelina and I are leaving the orphanage in the middle of winter without a place to stay." I take the fastest hot shower of my life and wait for Adelina. Chapter 23. "We're not going to Sarah's," Sam says, following me along the edge of the forest. "We got this tablet thing, possibly the transmitter we were after, and we're going back to help Six." I step towards him. Six can handle herself. I'm right here and Sarah's right here. I love her, Sam, and I'm going to see her. I don't care what you say. Sam backs down, and I keep walking towards Sarah's house. Sam says, "Do you really love her though, John? Or are you in love with Six? Which one?" I twist around and shine my palm in his face. "You think I don't love Sarah? Hey, come on." "Sorry," I mutter, lowering my palm. He rubs his eyes. "It's a valid question, man. I see you and Six flirting all the time, and you do it right in front of me. You know I like her, and you don't even care. And to top it all off, you already have like the hottest girlfriend in Ohio." "I do care," I whisper. "You care about what?" "I care that you like Six, Sam." "But you're right, I like her too. I wish I didn't, but I do. It's stupid and cruel to you, but I can't stop thinking about her. She's cool and she's beautiful and she's Lorik, which is like, extra cool. But I love Sarah. And that's why I have to see her. Sam grabs my elbow. You can't, man. We have to go back and help Six. Think about it. If they were waiting for us at my place, then even more of them are waiting for us at Sarah's. I gently pull my elbow away from his grip. You got to see your mom, right? You saw her in the backyard? Yeah, he sighs. His eyes find his shoes. You got to see your mom, so I get to see Sarah. That doesn't make as much sense as you think it does. We got the transmitter, remember? This is why we're in paradise. It's the only reason. Sam hands me the tablet, and I stare at its blank screen. I touch every inch of it. I try telekinesis. I hold it to my forehead. The tablet remains off. Let me try, Sam says. As he fumbles with the tablet, I tell him about the ladder, the huge skeleton with the pendant, and the desk and wall covered in papers. Six grabbed a handful of the papers, but it's not like we can read them, I say. So my dad had a secret underground lair. Sam smiles for the first time in hours, handing the tablet back. He was so cool. I'd really like to look at the papers Six took. Absolutely, I say. Right after I see Sarah. Sam opens his arms in astonishment. What can I do to change your mind? Just tell me. Nothing. There's nothing you can do to stop me. The last time I was at Sarah's house it was Thanksgiving Day. I remember walking up the driveway and seeing Sarah wave from the front window. Hey, handsome, she said when she opened the door, and I turned around to look over my shoulder to pretend she meant it for someone else. Her house looks completely different at 2 in the morning. With every window dark, with the garage doors closed, the house looks cold and empty. Uninviting. Sam and I are on our bellies in the shadow of a house on the corner, and I don't know how I'm going to talk to her. I pull the prepaid cell phone I've had turned off for days out of my jeans. I could text her until she wakes up. That's actually a pretty good idea. Just do this already so we can get out of here. I swear, Six is going to kill us, or worse, maybe she's about to be killed by a swarm of mogs and we're here lying in the grass about to go through a scene from Romeo and Juliet. I power up the phone and type, I promised I'd come back. You up? We count to 30 after I send it, and then I type, I love you. I'm here. Maybe she thinks you're pranking her, Sam whispers after we wait another 30 seconds. Say something only you would know. I try, Bernie Kosar misses you. Her window lights up. Then my phone buzzes with a text, is it really you? You're in paradise. I pull up a handful of grass, I'm so excited. Chill out, Sam whispers. I can't help it. I respond, I'm outside. Meet me at the playground in 5? My phone buzzes immediately, I'll be there. Smile. Sam and I are hiding behind a dumpster at the end of the street when Sarah takes her first steps onto the concrete playground. From the moment I see her, I'm breathless, flooded with emotions. She's 20 yards away, wearing dark jeans and a black fleece jacket. A white winter hat is pulled over her head, but I can still see her long blonde hair, and it brushes over her shoulders in the slight wind. Her flawless complexion glows in the lone playground bulb, and I feel instantly self-conscious about being covered in dirt and mog ash. I take a step away from the dumpster, but Sam grabs my wrist and holds me back. John, I know this is going to be really hard, he whispers. But we have to be back in those woods in 10 minutes. I'm serious. Six is counting on us. I'll do my best, I say, not even thinking of the repercussions at this point. Sarah is right there, and I'm so close I can practically smell her shampoo. I watch Sarah turn her head back and forth looking for me. Finally she sits down on a swing and twists herself, the ropes above her becoming taut. Sarah starts to spin slowly, and I shuffle around the perimeter of the playground, pausing behind trees, watching her. She looks so beautiful. So perfect. I wait until she's facing the other direction before stepping out of the shadows, and when she twists around again, there I am. John? The toes of Sarah's sneakers scrape on the concrete to stop her from twisting back around. Hey, beautiful, I say. I can feel my smile reaching the corners of my eyes. Sarah covers her mouth and nose with her hands. I walk towards her and she tries to get off of the swing, but its ropes are too taut for her to escape. I jump forward and catch the swing's ropes in my hands. I twist her towards me and raise my arms, lifting her and the seat so her face lines up with mine. I lean in and kiss her, and the instant our lips meet, it's as if I'd never left paradise. Sarah, I say into her ear. I've missed you so much. I can't believe you're here. This can't be real. I kiss her again, and I don't stop while I twist us both around and around until the ropes above her separate. Sarah pushes off from the seat and lands in my arms. I kiss her cheeks and her neck, and she runs her hands over my head, gripping my short hair between her fingers. I set her down and she says, "Somebody got a haircut." Yeah, it's my whole tough guy on the run look. What do you think? You into it? I am, she says, pressing her palms to my chest. But you could be bald for all I care. I take a step back to cement this image of Sarah. I note the brightness of the stars behind her, the tilt of her winter hat. Her nose and cheeks are red from the cold, and as she bites her lower lip and stares at me, a small cloud of breath floats from her mouth. I've thought about you every single day, Sarah Hart. I promise I've thought about you twice as much. I lower my head until our foreheads touch. We stay this way wearing ridiculous grins until I ask, "How are you? What are things like for you around here right now?" "Better now." "It's so hard being away from you," I say, kissing her cold fingers. "I'm constantly thinking about what it feels like to touch you and hear your voice. I've come close to calling you every single night." Sarah cups my chin and runs her thumbs over my lips. "I've sat in my dad's car so many times just wondering where you are. All I needed to know was which direction and I would have started to drive." "I'm right here. Right in front of you," I whisper. She drops her hands. "I want to come with you, John. I don't care. I can't go on like this. It's way too dangerous. We just finished battling 50 mogs over at Sam's place. That's what life is like with me right now. I can't put you in the middle of all this." Her shoulders shake, and tears dot the corners of her eyes. "I can't stay here, John. Not with you out there and me not knowing if you're dead or alive." "Look at me, Sarah," I say. She raises her head. "There's no way I'm going to die. Knowing that you're here waiting for me, it's like a force field. We're going to be together. Soon." Her lip quivers. "It's so hard. Everything is awful right now, John." "Everything's awful? What do you mean?" "People are jerks. Everyone's saying hateful things about you, and they say a lot of things about me, too." "Like what?" "That you're a terrorist and a murderer and you hate the United States. Guys at school call you names like Bomb Smith. My parents say you're dangerous and I'm never supposed to talk to you again no matter what, and as an added bonus, there's a reward on your head, so people are always talking about shooting you." She puts her head down. "I can't believe you have to put up with all that, Sarah," I say. "At least you know the truth. I've lost almost every friend I had. Plus I'm at a new school where everyone just thinks I'm this weirdo. I'm devastated. Sarah was the most popular, most beautiful, most liked girl at Paradise High School. Now she's an outcast. Things won't always be this way, I whisper. She can't hold back the tears any longer. I love you so much, John. But I can't imagine how we're going to get out of this mess. Maybe you should turn yourself in. I'm not turning myself in, Sarah. I just can't. We'll get out of it. Of course we will. My one and only love, Sarah. I promise, if you wait for me, things will get better. But the tears don't stop. How long do I wait, though? And what happens when things do get better? Will you go back to Lorien? I don't know, I finally say. Paradise is the only place I want to be right now, and you're the only person I want to be with in the future. But if we're able to somehow defeat the Mogadorians, then yes, I have to go back to Lorien. But I don't know when that will be. Sarah's phone buzzes in her pocket, and she pulls it halfway out to check the screen. Who's texting you so late? I ask. Just Emily. Maybe you should just turn yourself in and tell them you're not a terrorist. I don't want to lose you over and over, John. Listen to me, Sarah. I can't turn myself in. I can't sit in a police station and try to explain how an entire school was destroyed and how 5 people were killed. How am I supposed to explain Henri? Those documents they found in our house. I can't get arrested. I mean, Six would absolutely kill me right now if she knew I was here talking to you. Sarah sniffs and wipes her tears away with the backs of her hands. Why would Six kill you if she knew you were here? Because she needs me right now and it's dangerous for me to be here. She needs you? She does. I need you, John. I need you here to tell me everything is going to be okay, that all this is worth it. Sarah walks slowly over to a bench marked with initials. I sit down next to her and lean my shoulder onto hers. We're out of the light and I can't see her face very well. I don't know where it comes from, but Sarah leans away from me and says, Six is very pretty. She is, I agree. I shouldn't have, but it just fell out of my mouth. Not as pretty as you, though. You're the prettiest girl I know. You're the prettiest girl I've ever seen. But you don't have to stay away from Six like you have to with me. When we go on walks we have to be invisible, Sarah. It's not like we can just hold hands and walk down the street. We have to hide from the entire world. I'm hiding just as much when I'm with her as when I am with you. Sarah shoots off of the bench and turns around. You go on walks with her? Do you hold her hand when you two walk down the street? I stand up and approach her with my arms out, the sleeves of my coat still caked with dirt. We have to. It's the only way I can be invisible. Have you kissed her? What? Answer me. There's something new in her voice. It's a mixture of jealousy and loneliness, and enough anger to give each word a kick. I shake my head. Sarah, I love you. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, nothing's happened. A tsunami of discomfort crashes into me, and I rifle through my vocabulary to piece together the right words. She's furious. It was a simple question, John. Have you kissed her? I haven't kissed Six, Sarah. We haven't kissed. I love you, I say, and then I cringe at the acidity of the words, the sentence sounding far worse than I thought it would. I see. Why was that question so hard for you to answer, John? My life just keeps getting better and better. Does she like you? It doesn't matter, Sarah. I love you, so Six doesn't matter. No other girls matter. I feel like such an idiot, she says, crossing her arms. Stop, please. Sarah, you're misinterpreting everything. Am I, John? She asks, turning her head and staring fiercely at me with tears in her eyes. I've gone through so much for you. I reach out and try taking Sarah's hand, but she snatches it away the instant our fingers touch. Don't, she says, a hard edge in her voice. Her phone buzzes again in her jacket pocket, but she doesn't make a move to check it. I want to be with you, Sarah, I say. Nothing I say right now seems to come out right. All I can really say is that I've spent weeks missing you terribly, and there hasn't been a single day that I didn't think about calling you or writing a letter. I feel wobbly. I can tell I'm losing her. I love you. Don't doubt that for a second. I love you, too, she cries. I close my eyes and breathe in the cool air. A bad feeling rushes over me, a prickly feeling that starts in my throat and claws its way into my shoes. When I open my eyes, Sarah has taken several steps away from me. There's a noise to my left, and I whip my head to see Sam. His eyes are downcast, and he bobs his head in a way that tells Sarah and me that he'd rather not be approaching, but he has to. Sam? Sarah asks. Hey, Sarah, he whispers. Sarah wraps her arms around him. It's really good to see you, he says into her hair. But, Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry, and I know you guys haven't seen each other in a long time, but John and I need to go. We're in a lot of danger. You have no idea. I sort of do. She pulls off of him, and just as I prepare to start reassuring her how much I love her, just as I'm about to start saying goodbye, chaos erupts. Everything happens so fast I'm unable to take it all in completely, the scenes randomly skipping like a movie reel gone mad. Sam is tackled from behind by a man in a gas mask. The blue jacket he wears has the letters FBI on the back. Someone wraps their arms around Sarah and whisks her away from me. A metallic shell skids across the grass and lands at my feet, and the white smoke billowing from both ends burns my eyes and throat. I can't see. I hear Sam gag. I stumble away from the canister and fall to my knees next to a plastic slide. When I lift my head I see over a dozen officers surrounding me, all with guns drawn. The masked officer who tackled Sam has his knee on Sam's back. A voice through a megaphone blasts. Don't move. Put your hands on the top of your head and get on your stomach. You are under arrest. As I place my hands on the top of my head, cars that have been parked on the street the entire time we were there suddenly come to life, their headlights turn on, red lights flash from dashboards. Cop cars screech around the corner, and an armored vehicle with SWAT written on its side jumps the curb and slams on its brakes in the middle of the basketball court. Men yell and pile out of it at an alarming rate. And that's when someone kicks me in my stomach. Handcuffs are clicked around my wrists. Above me I hear the whir of a helicopter. My mind grabs hold of the only explanation it can come up with. Sarah. The text messages. That wasn't Emily. The police were talking to her. What little of my heart that didn't break when Sarah backed away from me now shatters. I shake my head with my face against the concrete. I feel someone remove my dagger. Hands take the tablet from my waistband. I watch as Sam is pulled off the ground by his arms, and our eyes meet for a brief second. I can't tell what he's thinking. Cuffs are slapped around my ankles, and a chain connects to the cuffs around my wrists. I'm jerked up from the ground. The cuffs are too tight and dig into my wrists. A black hood is pulled over my head and secured around my throat. I can't see a thing. Two officers grab my elbows while another shoves me forward. You have the right to remain silent, one of them begins as I'm led away, and I'm thrown into the back of a vehicle. Chapter 24. After 5 minutes, I get up off my bed and look in the wardrobe to see if there are any clothes I want to take with us. I'm holding a black sweater when I decide I can't leave without saying goodbye to Hector. I rip another girl's jacket from the wall, one with a hood, and write a quick note to Adelina. Had to say goodbye to someone in town first. The double doors open into the chilly air, and once I see the police cars and news vans lining Call Principal, I feel better. The Mogadorians wouldn't try anything with so many witnesses. I walk through the gate with the hood over my head. The door to Hector's house is cracked open, and I knock softly on the door frame. "Hector?" A woman answers. "Hello." The door swings open and it's Hector's mother, Carlotta. Her black and grey hair is pinned carefully around her head, and her face is pink and smiling. She's wearing a beautiful red dress and a blue apron. The house smells like cake. "Is Hector home, Senora Ricardo?" I ask. "My angel," she says. My angel has returned. She remembers what I did for her, how I cured her disease. I feel embarrassed by the way she's looking at me, but she bends down for a hug and I can't resist. "My angel has returned," she says again. "I'm so happy you're feeling better, Senora Ricardo." The tears that fall from her eyes are almost too much, and soon my own eyes swell with water. "You're welcome," I whisper. There's a meow behind Carlotta, and I lean over to see Legacy trotting towards me from the kitchen with milk dripping from his chin. He purrs against my shins and I bend down to pet his coat. "When did you get a cat?" I ask. "This morning he comes to my door, and I think he is so sweet. I've named him Theo." "It's good to see you, Theo." "He's a good cat," she says, her hands now on her hips. "Very hungry boy." "I'm so glad you two found each other." "Carlotta, I'm very sorry but I have to leave. I need to speak with Hector." "Is he home?" "He's at the cafe," she says. The disappointment of Hector drinking so early in the morning must be evident on my face, because Carlotta adds, "Only coffee now." He's drinking coffee. I hug her goodbye and she kisses both of my cheeks. The cafe is packed. I reach for the door, but just before I pull it open, something stops me dead in my tracks. Hector's sitting at a small table, but I notice him only in my periphery. My eyes are glued to who's sitting in the chair opposite him, the Mogadorian from last night. He's now clean-shaven, and his black hair has been lightened to a chestnut color, but there's no mistaking him. He's just as tall and muscular as before, just as broad-shouldered, just as dark and brooding, with the same heavy brows. I don't need the killer's description to know he matches it perfectly, with or without the dyed hair or missing mustache. I let go of the door and step backwards. "Oh Hector," I think. "How could you?" My legs shake, my heart pounds. As I'm standing there watching them, the Mogadorian turns and sees me at the window. My flesh turns cold. The world seems to stop. I'm stuck, rooted in place, incapable of moving a muscle. The Mogadorian watches me, causing Hector to turn my way as well, and it's only upon seeing his face that I'm shocked into action. I stumble backwards, then turn and run. But before I've made it far, I hear the cafe door open. I don't turn around. If the Mogadorian is following me, I don't want to know. "Marina!" Hector yells. "Marina!" 4 officers ride with me. I touch my fingertips to the heavy chains. I'm certain I could break them if I wanted to, or I could simply unlock the cuffs with telekinesis, but the thought of Sarah empties me of the energy required for such an undertaking. She couldn't have turned me in. Please don't let it have been her. The first drive takes 20 minutes, and I have no idea where we are. I'm pulled out and shoved into a second vehicle which I assume is more secure, meant for longer transport. The second drive takes forever, 2 hours, maybe 3, and by the time we finally stop and I'm again jerked out, the sickness over what Sarah may have done has grown to the point that it's nearly unbearable. I'm guided into a building. After each turn I have to wait for a door to be unlocked. I count 4 of them, and the air changes with each new corridor, becoming staler the farther I'm led. Finally I'm pushed into a cell. "Sit," one of them orders. I sit on a bed. The hood is removed but the shackles remain. 4 officers exit and slam the door shut. The 2 larger ones take seats outside my cell, while the other 2 leave. The cell is small, 10 feet by 10 feet, and contains the bed I'm sitting on, covered in yellow stains, and a metal toilet and sink. Nothing else. 3 of its 4 walls are solid concrete, and there's a small window at the very top of the back wall. Despite the filthy mattress, I lie down, close my eyes, and wait for my mind to slow down. "John!" Sam's voice yells out. My eyes snap open. I rush to the front of the cell, grabbing hold of the bars. "Right here," I yell back. "Shut up." The larger of the 2 guards yells, pointing his nightstick at me. Down the corridor, somebody yells at Sam, too. He doesn't say anything else, but at least I know he's close. I reach my hand through the bars of my cell and press my palm against the flat metal surface of their lock. I close my eyes, focus my telekinesis to feel its inner workings, and yet I feel nothing other than a vibration that hurts my head the harder I concentrate. The cell, it's electronically controlled. I can't open it with telekinesis. I run as fast as I can back to the orphanage, the hood ballooning with air behind me, and as I gain speed the clouds and blue sky above me melt into a bright white. I burst through the double doors and run to the sleeping quarters. Adelina's sitting on my bed, the note folded on her lap. A small suitcase sits at her feet. When she sees me, she jumps up and hugs me. "You have to look at this," she says, handing me the paper. I unfold it to see that it's not my note after all but a photocopied picture. It takes me a second to realize what the picture is of, and when I recognize it my heart sinks. Someone has burned an enormous and intricate symbol into the side of a nearby mountain. With its careful lines and sharp angles, it's an exact replica of the scars around my ankle. The sheet falls from my hand and slowly floats to the ground. That was found yesterday, and the police are handing these copies out looking for information, Adelina says. "We have to go now." "Yes, absolutely. I need to talk to you about Ella first," I say. Adelina tilts her head. "What about Ella? I want her to come with." Before I can finish my sentence, I'm rocked off my feet by a thundering crash. Adelina falls as well and slams her shoulder into the ground. There's been an explosion, somewhere within the orphanage. Several girls run into the room screaming. Others run past the doorway looking for refuge elsewhere. I hear Sister Dora yell for everyone to go to the south wing. Adelina and I get to our feet and head for the hallway, but then another explosion hits, and suddenly I can feel cold wind. I can't hear what Adelina is saying above the screams, but I follow her gaze to the roof, where there's now a jagged hole the size of a bus. As I'm staring, a tall man in a trench coat with long red hair walks to the edge of the hole. He points at me. Chapter 25. The interrogation room is warm and pitch black. I rest my head on the table in front of me and try not to fall asleep, but after being up all night, I can't help myself. Instantly, I feel a vision forming and hear the whispers. I feel myself floating up through the darkness, then, as if shot through a cannon, I blaze through a shadowy tunnel. Black turns to blue. Blue turns to green. The whispers follow me, growing weaker the farther down the tunnel I go. Suddenly, I'm jolted to a stop and everything falls silent. A gust of wind appears with a bright light, and when I look down, I realize I'm standing on the snowy peak of a mountain. The view is spectacular, with mountains stretching for miles. There's a deep green valley below me and a crystal blue lake. I'm drawn to the lake and begin descending when I see tiny bursts of light surrounding it. As if I'm wearing binoculars, my vision is suddenly magnified and I see hundreds of heavily armed Mogadorians shooting at 4 running figures. My anger is immediate and colors blur as I run down the mountain. A few hundred yards from the lake, the sky growls above me with a black wall of clouds. Bolts of lightning crash into the valley and thunder roars. I'm knocked off my feet as lightning strikes all around me, and that's when I see the glowing eye form and stare down from the clouds. 6. I yell, but the thunder drowns me out. I know it's her, but what is she doing here? The clouds part, and someone drops into the valley. My vision magnifies again, and I see that I was right. 6 stands furious between the advancing army of Mogs and 2 young girls and 2 older men. Her arms are above her head, and a steady sheet of rain falls. 6. I yell again, and a pair of hands grabs my shoulders from behind. My eyes snap open and I whip my head off the table. The lights in the interrogation room are on, and there's a tall man with a round face standing above me. He's wearing a dark suit with a badge clipped to his belt. In his hands is the white tablet. Chill out, kid. I'm Detective Will Murphy, FBI. How we doing today? Never better, I reply, dazed by the vision. Who was 6 protecting? Good, he says. The detective sits, a pen and legal pad in front of him. He carefully displays the tablet on the left side of the table. So, he begins, slowly drawing it out. 6 what? What do you have 6 of? What? You were yelling the number 6 in your sleep. You want to tell me what that's all about? It's my golf handicap, I say. My mind tries to conjure up the faces of the 2 girls behind 6 in the valley, but they're fuzzy. Detective Murphy chuckles. Yeah, right. How about you and me have a little chat? Let's start with the birth certificate you gave to Paradise High. It's counterfeit, John Smith. In fact, we can't find a single thing about you prior to you showing up in Paradise several months ago, he says, squinting as though expecting some reply. Your social security number belongs to a dead man in Florida. Was there a question there? His grin turns into a smirk. Why don't you start by telling me your real name? John Smith. Right, he says. Where's your father, John? Dead. How convenient. Actually, it's probably the most inconvenient thing that's ever happened to me up until now. The detective writes something on the notepad. Where are you originally from? The planet Lorien, 300 million miles away. Must have been a long trip, John Smith. Took almost a year. Next time I'm bringing a book. He drops his pencil on the table, interlocks his fingers behind his head, and leans back. Then he pushes forward again and holds up the tablet. You want to tell me what this thing is? I was hoping you could tell me. We found it in the woods. He holds it by its edge and whistles. You found this in the woods? Where in the woods? Near a tree. Are you going to be a wise ass with every question? That depends, detective. Are you working for them? He sets the tablet back on the desktop. Am I working for who? The Morlocks, I say, the first thing I remember from English class. Detective Murphy smiles. You can smile, but they'll probably be here soon, I say. The Morlocks? Yes, sir. Like from the Time Machine? That's the one. That's like our Bible. And let me guess. You and your friend, Samuel Good, you're members of the Eloi? The Loric, actually. But for our purposes today, the Eloi will be fine. The detective reaches into his pocket and slams my dagger on the table. I stare at its 4-inch diamond blade as if I've never seen it before. I could easily kill this man just by moving my eyes from the blade to his neck, but I need to free Sam first. What's this for, John? Why would you need a knife like this? I don't know what knives like that are for, sir. Whittling? He picks up his notepad and pencil. Why don't you tell me what happened in Tennessee? Never been, I say. I hear it's a nice place, though. Maybe I'll visit when I'm out of here, take a tour, see the sights. Any suggestions? He nods, tosses the notepad onto the table, and then launches the pencil at me. I deflect it without lifting a finger, sending it bouncing against the wall, but the detective doesn't notice, and leaves through the steel door with the tablet and my dagger. Soon I'm shoved back into my old cell. I have to get out of here. Sam! I yell. The guard who's been sitting outside my cell jumps off his chair and swings the nightstick at my fingers. I let go of the bars just before they're crushed. Shut up, he orders, pointing his nightstick at me. You think I'm afraid of you? I ask. Getting him inside my cell sounds like a pretty good option. I could give a damn, Pee-wee. But if you keep it up, you're gonna regret it real fast. You couldn't hit me if you tried, I'm too quick and you're too fat. The guard chuckles. Why don't you just sit back on your bed and shut your mouth, huh? You know I can kill you any time I want to, right? Without even lifting a finger. Oh yeah? He replies. The guard steps forward. His breath smells rancid, like stale coffee. What's stopping you then? Apathy and a broken heart, I say. Both of those will go away eventually, though, and that's when I'll just get up and leave. I can hardly wait, Houdini, he says. I'm extremely close to taunting him inside, and as soon as he unlocks the door, Sam and I are as good as free. You know who you look like? I ask. Tell me, he says. I turn around and bend over. That's it, punk. The guard reaches for a control panel on the wall, and as he's stomping towards the door of my cell, an ear-splitting blast rattles the entire jail. The guard stumbles into the bars and smacks his forehead, falling to his knees. I drop and instinctively roll beneath the bed. Pandemonium erupts, yells and gunshots, clanking metal, and loud bangs. An alarm goes off, and a blue light flashes in the corridor. I roll onto my back and twist my hands to get a firm grip on the chain binding my wrists. While using my legs as leverage, I straighten myself and snap the chain binding my hands and feet in two. I use telekinesis to unlock my cuffs and drop them to the floor. I do the same with the pair around my ankles. John! Sam yells from down the hall. I crawl to the front of the cell. Right here. What's going on? I was going to ask you the same thing. I yell back. Other prisoners shout through their cell bars, too. The guard who fell in front of my cell grunts and struggles to his feet. Blood flows from a gash on his head. The ground shakes again. It's more violent and lasts longer than the first time, and a fog of dust barrels down the corridor from the right. I'm temporarily blinded, but reach my hand through the bars and yell to the guard, "Let me out of here." Hey! How'd you get your cuffs off? I see he's disoriented, wavering a few steps to his right, a few to his left, ignoring the other guards who run by him with guns drawn. He's covered in dust. 1,000 gunshots come from the right end of the corridor. A roar of a beast answers them. John! Sam screams in a pitch I've never heard from him before. I make eye contact with the guard and yell, "We're all going to die in here if you don't let me out." The guard looks towards the roars and terror spreads across his face. He slowly reaches for his gun, but before he can touch the grip it floats away from him. I know the trick. I saw that in Florida on a midnight walk, and I watch as the guard spins in confusion and runs. 6 becomes visible in front of my door, the large pendant still around her neck, and from the second I see her face I know she's pissed at me. I also see that she's in a very big hurry to get me out of here. "What's down there, 6? Is Sam okay?" "I can't see anything," I say. She looks down the corridor and concentrates on something, and a set of keys comes floating down the corridor, right into her hands. She inserts them into a metal panel on the wall. My door unlocks. I run out of my cell and I'm finally able to see down the corridor. It's extremely long, with at least 40 cells between me and the exit. But the exit is gone, as is the wall it should be on, and I'm staring at the giant horned head of a pecan. 2 guards are in its mouth, and drool mixed with blood falls from its razor-sharp teeth. "Sam!" I yell, but he doesn't answer. I turn to 6. "Sam's down there." She disappears before my eyes, and 5 seconds later I watch another cell slide open. Sam rushes towards me. I yell, "Okay, 6. Let's trash this thing." Inches from my nose, 6's face appears. "We're not fighting the pecan." "Not here." "Are you kidding me?" I ask. "There's more important stuff we have to do, John," she barks. "We have to get to Spain immediately." "Now?" "Now." 6 grabs my hand and pulls me after her until I'm running at a full clip. Sam is right behind me, and we're able to get through 2 sets of doors with 6's keys. As the second one is flung open, we're faced with 7 mogs running with cylindrical cannon-like tubes and swords. Instinctively, I reach for my dagger, but it's not there. 6 throws me the guard's gun, then holds me and Sam back. She lowers her head in concentration. The lead mog is spun around, and his sword slices across the 2 behind him, turning them to ash. 6 then kicks the mog in the back and he falls on his own sword. She's invisible before he dies. Sam and I duck the first tube's blast, and the second one singes the collar of my shirt. I shoot, emptying my pistol as I slide into the piles of ash. I kill 1 mog and then pick up his dropped tube. Hundreds of lights spark to life the second my finger finds the trigger, and a green beam cuts through another mog. I aim for the last 2, but 6 has already appeared behind them, lifting both to the ceiling with telekinesis. She slams them against the ground in front of me, then back to the ceiling and then again on the ground. My jeans are covered in their ash. 6 unlocks another door and we enter a large room with dozens of cubicles on fire. Holes smolder in the ceiling. Mogs are shooting at police, and police are firing back. 6 wrestles a sword away from the nearest mog and cuts off his arm, and then she jumps over a burning cubicle wall. I blast the stumbling one-armed mog in the back with my tube, and he falls into a black heap of ash. I see an unconscious Detective Murphy on the ground. 6 darts through the maze of cubicles, swinging her sword so fast it blurs. Mogs turn to ash all around her. Police retreat through a door on the far left as 6 slices through a circle of mogs closing in on her. I shoot and shoot, destroying those on the perimeter. When the room is clear, we run down an empty hallway under a shower of sparks. There. Sam points to a giant hole leading out into a parking lot. We don't hesitate, each one of us jumping through sparks and smoke, and before I sprint into the cold morning, I see my dagger and the tablet sitting on the desk in the office. I reach over and scoop them both up, And seconds later I'm following 6 and Sam into a deep ditch that provides us plenty of cover. "We're not going to talk about that right now," 6 says, her arms pumping fast. She dropped the sword a mile back. I tossed the mog tube under a bush. "But do you have it, though?" "John, not right now." "But do you?" 6 comes to an abrupt halt. "John. You want to know where your chest is?" "In the trunk of the car?" I ask, my eyebrows raised in apology. "Nope," she says. "Try again." "Hidden in a dumpster?" 6 lifts her arms above her head and a gust of wind sends me flying until I hit a massive oak tree. She marches towards me, fists at her sides. "How is she?" "Who?" I ask. "Your girlfriend, you asshole." "Was it worth it? Was it worth leaving me surrounded by mogs fighting to get your chest back to see precious little Sarah? Was it worth getting arrested for? Did you get enough kisses to make up for getting your face slapped all over the news again?" "No," I mumble. "I think Sarah turned us in." "I think so, too," Sam says. "And you?" 6 spins around to raise her finger at Sam. "You went along with it. I thought you were smarter than that, Sam. You're supposed to be some kind of genius, and you think it's a good idea to go to the one place in the whole world that the police would definitely be watching?" "I've never called myself a genius," Sam says, picking up the tablet I dropped, brushing dirt from it. 6 keeps walking. "And, 6, I had no choice. Seriously. I tried as hard as I could to get John to go back and look for you and help." "He did," I mutter, standing. "Don't blame Sam." "Well, John, while you two lovebirds were hugging and kissing, I was getting my ass kicked doing you a favor. I would have died if Bernie Kosar didn't grow into this giant elephant bear animal and help. They have your chest. And I'm sure by this point it's sitting right next to mine in the cave in West Virginia. Then that's where I'm going," I say. "No, we're going to Spain. Today." "No, we're not," I shout, brushing off my sleeves. "Not until I have my chest back." "Well, I'm going to Spain," she says. "Why now?" Sam asks. Our SUV comes into view. "I was just online. It's serious over there. Somebody burned a huge symbol into the mountainside over Santa Teresa and it looks exactly like the brands around our ankles. Someone needs our help and I'm going." We hop in the car and 6 drives slowly down the road, and Sam and I hide in the footwells of the back seat. Bernie Kosar barks from the passenger seat, happy to be riding shotgun for a change. Sam and I pass the laptop back and forth, both of us reading the article about Santa Teresa twice, 3 times. The burning symbol on the mountain is no doubt Lorik. What if it's a trap? I ask. My chest is more important right now. It might be selfish, but before I leave the continent, I want my inheritance. The possibility that the Mogs might open my chest is just as urgent to me as whatever is going on in Spain. I need to know how to get to the cave, I say. John. Get real. You're really not going to come with me to Spain? 6 asks. After reading all that, you're going to let me and Sam go alone? Guys, get this. Also out of Santa Teresa, there's a woman reported to have been cured, out of the blue, of an incurable degenerative disease. Santa Teresa is, like, an epicenter of activity right now. I bet every member of the guard are on their way, Sam says. If that's the case, I say, then I'm definitely not going. I'm getting my chest back. That's insane, 6 says. I scramble over the passenger seat and open the glove compartment. My fingers find the stone I'm looking for, and I drop it in 6's lap before hiding in the footwell again. She lifts the pale yellow stone above the wheel, turning it over in the sunlight, and laughs. You had the x-3s out? I figured it might come in handy, I say. These don't last long, remember, she says. How long? An hour, maybe a little more. The use is discouraging, but it could still give me the advantage I need. Can you charge it, please? When Six holds the x-3s to her temple, I know she's agreed to let me go after the chests while she heads to Spain.